if you had to advise a CEO or a business decision maker on trying to sell their idea to a panel, a board, with your kind of style methodology, what would you recommend? Welcome to the Point of View Show. My name is Andrew Tran. I'm your host. This show highlights business professionals in Asia and around the world to get an understanding on what makes them effective, how they do it, and advice to help you grow in leadership, branding, marketing, and sales. For more information, head over to my website, www.andrewtran.asia. Before we get into it, smash that subscribe button and click notifications, whether or not you're listening or watching this. It helps me a ton and it helps other like-minded people find these episodes a lot easier. Now let's get on with the show. My next guest is Ravi Rajani. He is a coach who's developed his sales skills working on the trading room floor of Citibank in London, all the way through to creating a robust and effective sales team for Europe's #1 travel tech firm, Fly Now, Pay Later. After years of acting and appearing live on TV and radio, presenting in the world of investment banking and startups, Ravi now focuses his energy on helping business leaders become confident speakers to develop more impactful presentations that sell. Our chat was incredible. It was really good getting a different perspective when it comes to sales, because throughout conversation, we chat about authenticity in developing that sales style, why it's effective, and also he gave 3 really key tips when it comes to pitching or selling your idea to a board all the way through to a sales room. So without further ado, give it up for Ravi Ranjani. Ravi, how's things, mate?
What's up, man? I'm glad to be here. As I was telling you before, you can see the bags under my eyes because I was delivering a workshop yesterday late. So I'm like, I'm sleepy, but we're good. We're good. We're in the money. We're in the game. I'm happy to be here with you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I think this week's been crazy for everyone. Like everyone I've spoken to, I've had late nights myself as well. And it's one of those kind of big things. But you know what? It makes everyone go a little bit cuckoo, right? When we've been working up late. And I guess a cuckoo thing I've been thinking about is if I was a racehorse, how would I name myself as a racehorse?
So you're saying, what would I name my racehorse? Or if I was a racehorse, what would I name myself?
Yeah.
I suppose I've got to keep it PC, right? There could be kids. Yeah. there could be kids listening in. Don't know. You know, there's always these memes, which is like, take your first name and then think of the last food you ate.
Right.
So if we go on that basis, I would be, what did I eat last? I mean, pretty pathetic, but I'd be Rav Jam on toast.
Oh.
So that would be my name. If we're going on the basis of food, I'd be Rav Jam on toast.
You know what?
Somebody called me Raj. Some people keep calling me Raji, and I'm like, I don't know where you get that from. But on LinkedIn, I'm like, you can even see my name, man. So we could go for Raji Jam on Toast. Why not? Let's go for that.
That's so racist. You should just call him out on that.
We're all good. You know what's so funny? So back in the day, when I used to work in investment banking on the trading floor, there was, and I know we're diverting it, but it was crazy how I would send emails, I'll never forget, to this really senior guy. Now, sending emails back and forth. And like 5 emails later, he's like, oh, thanks, Sanjay, or something like that. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Like, who's that, bro? And I can't remember if I was like, oh, it's so-and-so. But I probably was too scared. I was like, okay. But I was like, man, where'd you get that from? But hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
All good. Hey, so thank you so much for joining me today. And for anyone who's watching or listening and you've skipped straight past the intro and just went straight to here, really quickly, how'd you get you're a business coach, you're a communication business coach, right? And so, how'd you fall into that?
Yeah, man. I mean, I didn't get my start as a professional speaker or a TED talk. Like I didn't start doing the circuit and doing all those things. In fact, I've actually never done a TED Talk. I actually got my start in dance when I was a kid, like when I was like 8, 9 years old. And then when I was in theatre as a teen, acting in theatres across London in front of hundreds of people. So everybody would ask me when I was growing up, because I was doing it as a hobby, they would say, Rab, have you ever thought about taking acting seriously or being in the media, maybe pursuing it as a career? And in my head, I was like, nah, let me get a real job and make lots of money. So I did the classic thing and I entered the world of investment banking. I worked on the trading floor. And then later in 2016, I entered the world of sales leadership and at several startups and the world of intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship. So I began to do TV, radio, Facebook Lives, video content for social media. And it made me realize one big thing. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. You know, so many people talk about the content versus the delivery. And I think in the business world, a lot of people focus on content and they forget about delivery, whether it's pitching to investors, whether it's, you know, you and me having a one-to-one coaching session, looking at your sales numbers, whether it's delivering a client presentation. Delivery is so important. So there's two things which are really important to me. You know, stage presence, magnetic confidence, and speaking on video and stage is one super important thing to me. And also how to engage people, how to entertain, how to educate your audience so that you can actually inspire them to take action on your message. So yeah, as a result, man, one of the things that I focus on, or the thing I focus on, is helping leaders become confident speakers so that they can deliver impactful presentations, build their personal brand, and stop missing out on job and career opportunities because they can't communicate effectively.
Yeah, nice. And I think you kind of mentioned it as well when it comes to creating like world-class presence, right? It's creating that story and that impact. You know, what other things that kind of comes across when you think of what creates world-class kind of communication?
I mean, if you take a look at anybody who's ever got good at anything, it's not raw natural talent. Yes, you know, that's another thing. But, you know, if you take a look at many things in life, it takes practice. And I think the problem is when we look at communication and speaking, like sales, like personal finance, it wasn't taught in schools. I mean, it wasn't taught in my school anyway. I don't know about you. Was it taught in your school?
No.
No. And I mean, for me, that's just crazy because it's one of the things that we use every single day. We're selling ourselves consistently, right? We're either selling a product, we're selling, our company, or we're selling ourselves. And they don't teach that in school. You know, for example, understanding these things is super important. It's life skills. So it boils down to practice. It boils down to one of the things that helps anybody do anything great. It's repetition. And I feel that sometimes when it comes to speaking and communication, people can often get by with okay communication. When they step into leadership roles, if they can't communicate effectively, it's going to impact the way they lead. It's going to impact the way they communicate with clients. It's going to impact their bottom line. It's going to impact the way that they hire people wanting to partner with them. Like all of these different things, it becomes a serious problem if you can't communicate like an executive or like a leader that you know you can be.
And you talked about like effective, right? Effective communication. What's the process? Like, is there a process that you work with your clients who are leaders themselves in terms of producing that kind of effective communication?
Yeah. And I mean, it's a good question. So I have a very specific methodology which I use to help clients deliver presentations, or virtual ones, in person or virtually, without anxiety, stress, or fear. Now, why I mention that is if I told you, Andrew, like, have your hands here, have this here, don't talk like that, talk like this. You're going to be like, why are you changing me, man? Like you don't want to change you, right? It's simply about gaining the confidence to show the real you in that medium, because you can't teach somebody tactics if they don't have the ability to remember it or even think about it on the spot, because all they're saying to themselves is, oh my God, don't mess up, don't mess up, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't say this, don't go blank, don't fumble your words. And these are the things that enter people's minds when they're speaking, before they're speaking. And then even afterwards, they're thinking about, all the mistakes they made, and they ruminate over it. And one of the things that I've done at the very beginning is I've actually partnered up with a rapid transformational coach inside of my program. Now, why I mention that is what they do is they go deep into the subconscious mind, for 90-minute to a 2-hour session to really dig deep into the root cause of what is impacting you from speaking from a place of confidence, and then starting to lay a healthier foundation and transforming those negative speaking beliefs into positive ones. Now that for me it's amazing. Like it starts to build a solid foundation to then work from, versus, hey man, put your hands here, start speaking like this, and just change your tonality. And people often feel uncomfortable with that because they're not comfortable with just having a conversation on camera. Another thing I get people to do inside one of the steps is they do a 10-day video challenge. So for many, that can be quite a confrontational thing. It can be quite confrontational, but it gets the reps in, and then it gets the muscle memory. And so you can imagine, after doing the deep inner work and starting to get the reps in and creating more positive experiences than negative ones, everything starts to tip. We get to that tipping point where, actually, this isn't so bad. Oh my God, I'm getting comfortable. Okay, this is easy. I'm not in my own head. Boom. And then we can start looking at presentation structure, creating something which hooks people, and then delivering that, right? So it's a process, man. Yeah, it's a process.
Nice. I like how you the way you explained it is similar to, as you were explaining it, it reminded me of a trainer. Like if everyone's done boxing or jiu-jitsu or any other combat sports, you have a trainer, and especially when you get a new fighter in a gym, you're not trying to, a good trainer doesn't try to change everything that they do. They just mold the existing base that they already have, and then try to mold them in a way that will be effective for them and still allows them to be personable and show that, humility in themselves. And then what creates what creates, the differentiation between speaker A and speaker B. So I think that's really good.
If you look at in the corporate world, right, you'll get a lot of boring business presentations. And often it's because they can't connect with the audience. Now, we've all been there. You've been there. I've been there. We all have, where, we can feel that we have to speak a certain way, right? Because it sounds more articulate. It sounds a certain way. But the problem with that is your audience can smell that. They can smell that immediately. And if they can't connect with you, your hands could be in the perfect place. Your body, posture could be perfect, bang on. But if you're not communicating with your audience because you don't sound like you, in 2020, man, people are sniffing that out more than ever, right?
Yeah.
So exactly. It's about being you, It's about being you with everything, with all the imperfections and all, right? All the imperfections and all.
Yeah, exactly. Being authentic is so important these days. So moving along, today, I really wanted to also touch on communication, which we have, but also touch on something that's really important that you mentioned as well in the corporate world, which is selling, right? Whether or not you're a business development manager, or you're a CEO that has to sell within a board or within your executive team, everyone has a certain style of which they sell. And I think, for those who are watching, listening, you've alluded it a little bit as we were talking earlier, but just wanted to ask you, what is your selling style?
I've been asked this question before, actually. And here's the way I like to think about it. It goes back to that point that we mentioned about everybody having their own unique USP, which is them. They are the niche. Now, if you take a look at somebody's selling style, I personally don't think, I am aggressive. The idea is that you don't want to be modeling people who are comfortable in their own skin, and you get attracted to that. So you copy their tonality, you copy their pace, you copy their techniques, etc. There's strategies for sure, right? There's tons of sales strategy, sales techniques, and there's good practices, there's bad practices, no doubt. But it's about finding your own voice, which I think is super important. And I've seen this with sales reps very early on in their career. They'll look to their mentor, and they will try and sound like them, often be like them. They will try and have certain conversations like them, and it comes across like just nothing like them. So it's not about emulating, but it's about being inspired by your mentors to step into your own voice, and you'll find your own style from that, right? You'll start finding your own style from that. But if you and I, are co-leading a sales team of 50 people, if every single one of them sounded exactly the same, there's a problem, because there's no diversity of thought. But also, you may be able to connect with a client way more than I could for different reasons. And I may be able to connect with a different client more than you. And it's really good to have that diversity in your team, as well as diversity of thought, diversity of styles, because it brings creativity to the table versus 50 clones of Ravi. I mean, I don't think anybody would want that.
You never know.
You never know, bro. You never know.
Hey, but that's great, because that's a different perspective, right? If you were to speak to a gun salesperson, they would probably talk about a bit of a process that's involved in it, right? But for you, what you've done is you went, hey, look, like it's more about kind of bringing the inner person out, because, and I think you've alluded this before, it's at the end of the day, when someone wants to buy something, they buy it from you. They buy it because of you. It's not because yes, the product's fantastic, but it's like, I use the car analogy. There's no real difference between a Toyota and a Ford. They still have they've got 4 wheels and everything, and a steering wheel. But at the end of the day, it's the salesperson's job to make you feel comfortable enough with the product they have, to the point where it fulfills the needs and services and wants that you're trying to look for as a buyer. And you feel absolutely so comfortable with them because you feel as if you know them personally, that it's easy to close. And I think I like how you just kind of went, look, it's not about this. It's about bringing the inner person and creating, diversity amongst your sales team, amongst yourselves, so that then you're able to close effectively through communication. So I think that's really cool.
Thanks, man. And I think one thing to add is that process is 1000% needed. I like to call it, when I had a team of SDRs and salespeople, etc., we built a framework, and they could have freedom within the framework versus, here is this script, right? You will only use these exact words, and you will only use this exact tonality at the exact time that we say, right? So it was more of a partnership with them once they got to that process where they could understand the difference between what a quality client looks like versus somebody who's a poor fit. And once they start doing the reps, as we said, you can't know what a quality client on the phone looks like if you've only done 3 cold calls, for example.
Yep.
Yep. So there's definitely, process systems for scale is super important, but I'm a big believer of, you've got to be able to partner with people to not suppress their true selves, but bring it out and then allow them to flourish within your framework that you've developed, a methodology.
Yeah. And it's really great to kind of hear you say that as well, but also, everyone had to start somewhere, right? And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I guess your frame of mind would have changed, would have been a lot more different when you started. And so, how does it kind of change, from, I guess, when you started trying to actively sell to where you are now, which is you're very free flowing, and you've got you pretty much memorize a framework of which you can just play under and just kind of ask and tease questions out of people.
It's interesting, man, because when I think about sales, everybody's been selling for a long period of time, right? First interview, wanting to go to the cinema and see a certain movie with their partner or whatever it might be, right? But if you take a look at, professionally, where I really first started was on in the world of financial services. And in that specific role, the product was highly commoditized. So it would all be on price. So how people would differentiate themselves is by having very powerful relationships. It was the industry that I was in was highly relationship driven. You know, if you had a positive relationship with that client, they liked, know, and trusted you, you would get thrown deals, even if you were slightly worse on price, right? So it was very, very different. Then I left the trading floor where I was selling these foreign exchange derivative products to these big corporates, etc. And I went into the tech startup world, and it was completely different, right? It was completely different, whereby I suppose it kind of makes me think about this one quote, and Keenan talks about this in his book Gap Selling a lot, where it's not about being liked. For example, if you're my personal trainer, right, and I like you, that's great because that's going to get you through the front door. But if you are unable to deliver on your service or product and over deliver, how long do you think you're really going to be my personal trainer? Because I want results. So it really hammered home this idea that relationship-based selling is what we were focused on before in the environment that I was in. And all of the training was around that. Then we moved to an environment where, you know, I was selling high-ticket coaching products where it was a 1 or, you know, 2 call close. I was selling longer sales cycles for certain tech products, which could be 8, 9 months, 12 months, or sometimes, you know, like 3 months for some of the smaller businesses. And it wasn't simply, hey, let me take you out for dinner. Hey, let's go here and let's schmooze and all that sort of stuff. It was a highly different process. So that started to evolve the way I started to think about sales. And then I moved, you know, into like managing teams, and it started to evolve effectively there, the way I think about things. So yeah, and I'm sure if you and I do the same podcast, right, in 5 years' time, it will evolve again, right? So one of the big things that, you know, I've been doing on LinkedIn is sending voice notes to prospects, right? Sending voice notes in my cadence. And that I wouldn't have been doing 3 years ago, you know? So like things are evolving rapidly, and video prospecting is a big thing that, you know, I was focusing on. I had my team doing effectively in my previous role, or trying to get them out of their comfort zone to do it effectively is probably a better term. And time will continually change, and it's important to know where your clients hang out, but also how to differentiate yourself. So for example, a lot of the message I've been getting is, oh, whoa, voice notes. I haven't seen people do that. That's unique. Now, to you and I, that may be normal, but with somebody who's got 98 text, you know, I suppose, I don't want to call it spam, but let's call it spam, hit their LinkedIn inbox, then you get a voice note. Oh, boom, let me listen to that. You know, the response rate is sky high. So it gives you an example. Things evolve as tech evolves and as time evolves, right? And as you evolve as an individual.
Yeah. I like how you kind of went, hey, like my styles change based off the different industries I've been exposed to, from, you know, like the big financial kind of element all the way through to the startup world where it's results driven. Still with the relationship, like you still need to have that relationship, but it is very results driven. And then having to kind of move. And as I kind of scale my own business, I then had to learn to leverage different ways to communicate and build my team around that as well. So selling in that kind of process. So, you know, different ways to sell up, down, and sideways as well, which I think is really cool. It's really nice.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so final question. I ask everyone this: if you had to advise a CEO or a business decision maker on trying to sell their idea to a panel, a board, with your kind of style methodology, what would you recommend?
Oh man, we could talk about this for days. We could talk about this for days. I'll tell you what. I'll take it in this way. I'll give you 2 to 3 tips that they could include to ensure they do it in a powerful way. Number one, before the big day that you are holding this big presentation, athletes have pre-game rituals, right? Like you'll see LeBron James, you'll see Serena Williams, Rafa Nadal, all these footballers, they will have pre-game routines and rituals. So why don't we? Right? So what is the pre-game ritual? One of the things I like to do is meditation. Before I go out there and speak, whether it's on whatever medium, right? Whether it's TV, radio, big presentation, in front of hundreds of people on stage, whatever it might be, meditation really helps me, right? Versus for other people, like for example, Tony Robbins talks about it in his pre-game ritual, inverted commas. He has a trampoline and he's jumping up and down on it. He's fist pumping the air, like he's doing loads of different things. So you've got to figure out what's right for you. So I would think about getting your mind right so you can be clear up here. So going back to that boxing analogy, when do you see a trainer telling the boxer, go on, hit so hard in the dressing room? No, they're not. They're like breath work, calm, getting you in a state of clarity up here to turn the volume down on the noise. And that's a super important thing, to turn the volume down on the noise. Because if you're pitching to, your CEO, if you're a CEO and you're pitching to investors, or if you're pitching an idea to your team, you've got to be able to think clearly so you can hold and give a powerful message. And that happens through first toning down the noise and volume up in here through an exercise or a group of exercises that you're comfortable with. Tip number 2 would be less is more. Less is more, especially at that level. For example, if you've got pages and pages of notes and you're just reading off it, everyone's going to be like, oh man, what is this? What is this? But it's about taking those 50 pages of notes and consolidating it into half a page. That's the art. There's the power in that, right? And then being able to communicate that in an effective way and in an articulate way becomes the game after that. But taking that content, really knowing it enough that you can talk about it in a simplistic way. Simplicity is hard because it takes a while to get there. If you don't know about a subject, you've got to read books after books after books to then be able to say, this is what I think in 3 sentences. Think about it. As a consultant, your ideal customer profile, how many times have you worked on your I help statement, right? How many times have you gone out there, refined that 8 to 10 second pitch? It's taken time to get to the 8 seconds. And it's the same thing. Less is more, because when you give that 8 seconds, people go, oh, whoa, the certainty is there. It's short, it's punchy, and it's to the point. It's the same here. And the final thing is let your audience know the why and what's in it for them, right? What is the why behind what you're doing? Because you can say, I want you to do this. I want you guys to invest in me. But why and what's in it for them? We're selfish human beings, man. We want to know what's in it for us.
Exactly.
So give it to them.
Yeah. So it's like deriving value through that. Yeah, it's really, So I totally get it. And they're honestly 3 really great tips. Anyone, whether or not you're already a CEO or you're aspiring to be a CEO or you're aspiring to be a top level manager.
Can you hear my dogs there?
Yeah.
Can you hear them?
What kind of dogs you have?
This is, you know what this is? Do you know that BBC clip where the guy's giving that talk and the kid walks in and then his wife walks in with the other baby? I feel like that's going to happen. So anyway, we've got to own the imperfections, which is another thing, right? Like if you're on stage, if you're delivering a talk and tech goes wrong, you've got to be able to own it, right? For example, somebody walks in, you've got to be able to own it. And that breeds a level of confidence in you as somebody who can deal with pressure. It's really subtle, right? Mm-hmm. But it's those little things, especially when you're on a big audience, not just me and you kicking it here, but being able to own it.
Exactly, man. Cool. Well, thank you so much. Those tips around selling, but getting the mindset and mind frame around it through communication and building those repetitions coming through and owning. I think I really like what you just said before, owning like owning, if you call it imperfections, but just owning yourself, being accountable for yourself and being cool with the fact that, you know, this may happen, that may happen, but just be calm, having that meditative kind of approach, build that rhythm within yourself. And it takes time to kind of build that. I think that's really cool. So Ravi, for those who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Man, I hang out on LinkedIn at the moment. I say that's the only place I'm really hanging out at the moment. Barely on Instagram or Facebook. So LinkedIn, yeah, look me up on LinkedIn, Ravi Rajani. Connect with me, shoot me a message. If I can support you in any way, let me know. But yeah, connect with me and, you know, check out the free video content that I put out consistently.
Great. Thank you so much. And for anyone who's watching, listening, his details will be in the show notes below. So until then, thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in the next video.